So welcome, welcome to the next fireside chat. And I promise you, this one is full of fire and it's full of chat. We are here in Austria, in Vienna, at the UN building, talking about a subject that needs to be spoken about more and more across the world, but particularly in the UN, and that is fashion. With me, I have Jasmin from the WeDress Collective, and we're going to delve straight in. I want to do less talking because I've been doing quite a lot of talking. I want to hear from you. Want to hear what about your journey, how you created this startup, what motivated you? Because when I saw the WeDress Collective, I was really surprised that no one had done this before. It's one of those ideas that's so simply brilliant. Why didn't anyone do it before? So please tell us your journey.
Thank you, Rama, and thank you, all of you, for being here. So, what is WeDress Collective? It might make sense to start here. We're actually a peer-to-peer platform for fashion rental. Just to give you a little bit of more context, like the Airbnb of fashion, with the vision to make the fashion world more inclusive, more sustainable, and more circular. And actually we started because, as you might know, the fashion world is one of, or fashion as an industry, is one of the most polluting ones in the world. So actually fashion is accountable for 10% of global CO2 emissions, and actually for 92 million tons per year being disposed to landfill of textile waste, and so on and so forth. So I can talk about this for an hour. But what fashion does as well is fashion is one of the most discriminatory industries that we have on this planet. And I think peer-to-peer fashion rental is not the innovation here. I think that makes this so special, what we do at WeDress, is because very early in the days, I understood that fashion has this problem with diversity and inclusion. And of course, you can see it from more en vogue topics, like we talk about skin color, we talk about sizing, we talk about lots of things, but we don't talk about disabled people. And so I was like, okay, we're a startup, we're very young, we want to talk about diversity and inclusion, so we need to address people with disabilities as well. And this is what we did from the start.
So why is it, you've touched on a really important point here. We talk about age, we talk about gender, we talk about race. Why is disability left behind?
Good question. I do believe disability inclusion does not have the best lobby, at least yet. And I think it has not been perceived as a cool and a sexy topic. And I think this is something that we want to change, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, we could talk about a lot of barriers when it comes to scalability in a fashion label. And I think the two of you, so Rama and Samantha, who's in the audience, talked about this yesterday on your panel. What are the financial barriers, maybe the business barriers? But again, we are a startup, we're very young, and what we want to do is we want to include it right from the start, so it doesn't get to the point that we need to talk about budgets, because we're just doing it naturally.
Absolutely, because I think, yesterday you mentioned, Samantha, we were being interviewed by the wonderful Caroline Casey, and Samantha's work is very much around bringing the visibility of disability into fashion. And I always feel fashion design is lagging behind product design, service design. We were talking about education yesterday. When you create a fashion startup, are there tools, is there information that's out there that can support you in how to address, include people with a range of abilities? Or was it very much a case of going out and finding out and doing it yourself?
I think it's the latter, to be honest. So you need to dig very deeply to actually find the answers. But let's get back in time. So it was 2021. I understood, okay, we have a topic here, and I want to make it the center of attention of WeDress. So what I did is I actually found out, okay, we need to make our website accessible, but because we're a web platform, so this is where we need to start. So we made our first steps here. Then I started to reach out to fashion brands that are already doing important work in that field and are not too visible, in my opinion. So started to actually list these brands on our platform. And then I was like, okay, what else can we do? So this was what I could do by myself. And then I was trying to find information about, okay, how could we get the website to being more accessible? Really difficult topic. So not that, there is so much information around. So I think this is the first. And the second, I think, is also talking about investment. So we're a startup, so we're in this typical journey of raising funds and raising money. And so it was really interesting when I was talking to our investors or interested investors, explaining that now we are actually very much focusing on inclusion and accessibility. And they were like, no, Jasmin, please focus on one topic and not on many. I was like, I'm not focusing on many topics. I'm just making a website and a platform accessible because this should be the bare minimum. I mean, what are we talking about, right? And this is, in my opinion, what we need. This is the spirit that we need, because then something like what I did could happen, that I went to our public funding agency, the Vienna Business Agency, who has a stand here as well. And I was like, hey guys, please, whenever a startup comes to you and wants funding, please make them understand that when they, for example, when they want to build an app, make the topic of accessibility a topic. Make them understand that this is the bare minimum that they need to deliver. So we need to start where the money comes from, right?
And you touch on a really important point there. I mean, your enthusiasm just comes through the screen. I love it. I love it. That's why I said there's a lot of fire here. There's a lot of entrepreneurs there. There are a lot of people who will have ideas. Do you have any tips or tricks or advice for them on how to pitch the business? Because looking at your website, there's some amazing names there. You can get a branded bag or jacket for the hire of €7 a day, €9 a day. I don't know what my jacket would be worth, probably minus €7. I got it in a very funny place. But what are the sort of tips and tricks? Because you're a very persuasive person, because it feels like your passion comes through. But what would you say to other entrepreneurs who have that inkling of an idea and want to go out and talk to the fashion houses or talk to venture capitalists or funders?
Irritate them, inspire them, take them on your journey. I have an anecdote here. So last year I was invited to LVMH, Station F, that's the innovation incubator of LVMH in Paris. And I was invited to pitch. And I pitched WeDress, and of course I explained we were making the fashion world more inclusive, more circular, and so on and so forth, what you just heard. And then we dived a little more deeply into the topic of what is actually diversity and inclusion, and they were, of course, thinking about age and gender and skin color. And I was like, no, can we please talk about disability inclusion? And they were like, what? Excuse me? So what is it that you're doing? So I irritated them. And irritation is the start of change. You need to irritate people, but don't leave them alone. So what I would suggest, or what I would advise, is irritate people, inspire them with your solution, and show them how it can work for the fashion world, in my case, of course. So I was trying to make them understand. We had some fashion shows in the past, and we got very cool media coverage, and I showed them our fashion shows and how aesthetically appealing they were, so they were inspired by that. And this is what you need to do, in my opinion. And I know that not every person can be inspiring, it's not everyone has it in there, but just find that one person that can do that for you and let them do their job.
I love that, because one of the things I found is you find that lone wolf who wants to make a difference, who wants to change fashion or their business. And I've just got to ask you this. Can you give us an example of how you irritated someone? I'm really curious to know.
I think the irritation, going back to that example that I just gave, was really, so I was explaining what we do, and it was very intuitive for people, right? So, okay, renting and lending and making fashion more circular. But then this, like, topic of accessibility and inclusion was the irritation here, because typically when we talk about circularity, we don't talk about accessibility. And the irritation was to bring that in and to combine it with sustainability. So we're not talking in silos. We're trying to actually break these silos and to make the fashion world circular and accessible for everyone. And so this was the irritation. So you see, you don't need to do much to irritate people, you know, especially in the fashion world, let's be honest. So you might know that. So this information, this piece of information was enough to irritate them. But again, what I think is important, to not leave them alone with this kind of irritation and let them wonder, okay, what is it that this woman is doing? But to really take them on the journey and your understanding of change.
That I think is such a powerful piece there, because the journey of change, part of it is storytelling, but it doesn't have to live there. And the thing that really stood out for me there is the linking to sustainability. Quite often we talk about environmental sustainability, but linking it to social sustainability, linking it to inclusivity, to some of those ideas, can be hugely powerful. And it is one of the three pillars after all. So I think want to switch a little bit, you know, the closing minutes, to how has WeDress been received? What do people say about it?
I mean, generally speaking, I think we need to look at different geographies. In general, people are open to renting and lending. I think it depends on the geography of your market. I mean, you live in the UK, so you might know that renting is really a thing over there. And we're trying to bring the same spirit to the rest of the European Union. But again, here we're building a market. So unfortunately, consumerism out there has been nourished with a lot of overconsumption and so on and so forth in the past years by fast fashion companies. So we're basically competing against fast fashion companies. And that's not an easy task to do. So you need a lot of patience and perseverance in order to do that. But yeah, we're doing it.
And are we seeing a sort of generational change? You know, so people, less and less people are getting their driving license, less and less people are looking at owning a car or owning a house, for example. And those sort of things that we were taught maybe in the 70s, 80s, 90s of, you know, I think the British Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, once famously said, if you're still riding the bus when you're 30, you failed. You know, you should have a car. And if you don't own your house, I think there was something along those lines. But are you pushing against some ingrained attitudes here? And how do you address that?
Yeah, definitely we do. And I think what we learned over the past years is that you need to be on top of people. Sounds a little tacky, but that's what you need to do. So you need to be everywhere and to really, you know, follow up on people. So they might hear that there is a rental opportunity, or you can rent, but then you need to follow up and follow up and follow up again. And so this typically costs money, right? And this is where also a problem comes in, that there is not enough money in the market to actually invest into startups that are trying to create a better world by offering solutions like ours. So what I learned is, if you want to establish a new routine, and this is what we're basically trying to do, we're trying to change consumer behavior, and that's a hard task, right? Again, competing against established brands, but yeah, establishing a routine and doing the same things over and over again. I know that sounds a little, I don't know, not too entertaining, but that's in the end what changes consumer behavior.
Yeah, I think it ingrains patterns, and patterns are what people default to. So would you say WeDress is you know, I can call it many, many different things, but I think, you know, sorry, not any rude names or anything like that, but it's, what really interests me is that little bit of human behavior And was there a particular moment when you had an insight? I always love asking entrepreneurs was there a single moment of insight, or was it a group of things that sort of bled into the idea that flooded your system, your being, and made you want to do the idea? How did it sort of come about?
I mean, the idea came up because I think our perfect customer. I love fashion. I have a big fashion appetite, but my sustainability values are very strong. So I always struggle to combine these two worlds. And I thought that rental would be a perfect opportunity or option to do it, because secondhand actually did never solve my problem. So because you buy secondhand and it's better than firsthand, right? But in the end, you're left with that piece of garment. So who solves your problem now? And that is a problem, in my opinion, and I made it a business.
So we are nearly out of time. I'm going to give the last word to you in a moment, but something that you said there really triggered in a positive way, which is you built this for yourself. And one piece of advice I always talk to people about is when you create an idea, whether you're an entrepreneur or especially a large business, use your own product. The amount of executives that create an accessibility format but haven't actually used it, and when you challenge them to use it, they can't use it. That's also a good pitching tool, because that shows them the gap that they may need you to fulfill. So final few words. I know irritation is something, positive irritation is something I'm taking away. What would be a final message to the entrepreneurs out there?
Go out of your bubble. I think that's super important, and I think if I had stayed in my sustainability bubble, I would never be here, first of all, and I would not push and enable the change that is happening, because again, we're trying to change fashion, and so you need to actually talk to the people that are totally into fashion and fashion crazy. So I love to do that. I love to create overlaps and change by that. And you need to have a lot of guts for that. You need to be a little crazy, and you need to love what you do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. Do check out WeDress Collective. Absolutely fantastic, and you heard it here at the UN first.
Thank you so much.